serious, it's fun, it's your Catholic Drive Time.
With Joe McLean and Emily Alcaraz.
Now via Zoom chat is Sherry Blomquist. She's got a book out called From Aesop to Austin by Ignatius Press. It's about reading the classics. Good morning to you, Sherry. Thanks for being on our program.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Praise be to God. It's good to have you on. Now, where are you from? What part of the country are you in?
Well, I am a Coloradoan, but I live in Tennessee right now.
Praise be to God.
Southern Tennessee.
Praise be to God. Tennessee is such a beautiful state as well as Colorado.
It is.
It's an interesting concept about the classics. One, because we wonder. I mean, I was public schooled as a kid, but now I have 6 kids, 2 grandkids. We homeschool. We've homeschooled all of our children. Our oldest, who has 2 kids of his own, he went through Colby Academy, and the classics were a big part of his curriculum. And my eldest daughter, who's with me today, she also is going through this same high school curriculum, and the classics are a big part of it. And when you read the classics, like the Iliad or the Odyssey, a lot of times these can have some troubling elements for young minds. And that was one of the questions we wanted to bring up. But the other question is, I wonder, are kids being taught the classics today in public education? Where is the classics in the formation of young people in our country today? Sherry Blomquist, we hope you can shed some light.
For your second question, I also wanted to correct one thing. The book's title is Before Austin Comes Aesop.
Thank you.
No worries. In regard to whether classics are being taught today, I've been paying pretty close attention to the news. When I hear anything about education, I kind of perk up, because I've been an educator as well as a homeschool parent for many years. And I have seen since the 1990s, when I was in school, I have seen a kind of a steady decline of the emphasis on the classics in public education. Now, I haven't been a public education teacher, but I have been a substitute teacher. And so I've been in many public schools. I have been in many private schools, and I've also homeschooled. So I've had my finger on the pulse of education for a long time, even when it's been from the sidelines. And even in the 1990s, when I was taught how to teach English, because I have an English education degree, there was already a de-emphasis on the Western canon, which most of us grew up with. Excuse me. And, it used to be that when you went to school, you got Longfellow, Hawthorne, Lewis Carroll. And in the 1990s, there was a big push for multiculturalism. And I remember that was just this big emphasis. Even though I went to a very solid Christian school, there was this intense and emphasis on multiculturalism. And it wasn't that the classics weren't important. It's just that they were trying to push the literature of different cultures, which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's good to be exposed to all different kinds of literature. But ever since then, it's been kind of a steady decline until today. You see very, very little Western canon literature, the classics, when I hear about public education. And my son was just in a public school in the fall, and we pulled him right back out and put him back into homeschooling. And they hardly did any literature. The literature they did, there was a contemporary book. I've been hearing more about contemporary books being pushed. And it's just not. It's not good right now, but a lot of classical school, a lot of private schools, a lot of homeschool tutorial programs like Colby, they are championing those books. So it's still there.
Sherry Blomquist is our guest today. We have about 3 minutes before we go to our first break, and then we'll be right back. But before we go to break, I was just wondering, could you give us a pitch of why we should be reading the classics? Many of us have never read the classics, never exposed to them, and they seem kind of intimidating, even as adults, better yet for kids. So could you give us a pitch of why we should care about the classics?
Well, first of all, children's classics are accessible to anyone. And even many adult classics are accessible to children, and they are classics for a reason. They're classics because they're good literature, they're good stories. And we often get turned off by the archaic language. We're not sure, if we can fully understand them. They're outdated, but at their core, like the Odyssey, is an amazing adventure. But more importantly, Western classics, and I'm defining that against Eastern classics because our civilization is Western civilization. That is who we are as a people. That's where we are. That is what our civilization is. And the classics are the voice of our civilization. It is kind of a record of where we've been, who we are, where we're going. It kind of gives us a sense of where we're going. It helps us learn about our past, just like history. But also it's the foundation of our culture, these great thinkers, these storytellers. And so when we read the classics, then we are learning about ourselves, and we are embracing our own civilization. That doesn't mean we can't add on to it and add other peoples and cultures and all that. That's good. But it also helps us to understand who we are as well.
Cherry Blomquist is our guest today, and we're about a minute before we take our break. But just to set up for the question I want to ask when we get back from the break is, whenever I was growing up, whenever I started reading the classics, it was so daunting to me. It was like, it's not that I didn't like to read. I read a lot, but once we were reading things like the Iliad, the Odyssey, or The Woman in White, and things like that, it just became so difficult. It was just a total different style of writing, and it was so foreign to me, having only read things like young adult fiction and things like that. It was just such a different world of writing, and so I was struggling so much. Even though I liked reading and liked writing, the classics just seemed so inaccessible to me. So when we get back from the break, I'd like you to respond. How do we raise our kids to be able to read the classics, and how do we train them or train ourselves as being adults and to go back and I want to go back and get that education that I did not get as a child?
Oh, well, that's easy. Start with the children's books. The children's books are for everyone. And, we tend to think of children's literature as subpar, that it's not real literature. It was published for children because, they can't understand adult literature yet. And, it's, the children's literature is just a bridge to adult literature. And nothing could be further from the truth. The literature that children have embraced for millennia, since ancient times, is still the same literature that we want that we could be reading and enjoying ourselves. Children have been reading or being exposed to. A lot of times it was storytelling, oral, before there was a lot of literacy. But folk tales, mythology, fairy tales. Even the Odyssey, the Iliad, the Aesop, but those are, we still think of those as adult literature. There's been so much wonderful children's literature published. It's a rich treasure trove of literature that's accessible to everyone because it's not subpar. It is just as beautiful and just as profound and wonderful. It's just simpler. And my philosophy is that when, art is for everyone. It doesn't matter if it's adult or children. Adult art is for everyone. And many of these books are beautiful art. Even Goodnight Moon, we can look at Goodnight Moon as an adult when we read it with our children and get things out of it that our children maybe can't because of their age. There's wonderful novels. The Hobbit was actually a children's novel. The Little House on the Prairie series. It doesn't matter that it's adult literature. We can access it, the children's literature, and build from there, because that too is major literature and has contributed profoundly to Western civilization. In fact, much of children's literature has influenced adult literature. You will see allusions, for example, to Alice in Wonderland in adult literature. And so we should start with the children's literature, in my opinion. We will not go wrong.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know a friend of mine, he would carry around, which when I first found out that he did this, I thought it was hilarious, and I was like, we would make fun of him about it. But looking back, I realized that it's not a children's book. He would carry around Winnie the Pooh. the complete works of Winnie the Pooh, and it was a massive volume, like the size of like a dictionary, and he would carry it around, and it was his favorite book, and we were all like, dude, that's a children's book, what are you doing? Though none of us had actually read it. He was the only one that actually read it. All of us had just only seen the cartoon as a child and never actually read any of it, and he was like, no, y'all have no idea what you're talking about, y'all need to actually read it, it's amazing.
Yep. And did you know that there's actually adult spin-offs off Winnie the Pooh? There's a Latin version and there's the Tao of Pooh. I mean, Winnie the Pooh has wisdom for everyone. And sure, it's for children, I'm not going to pretend it's like reading Pride and Prejudice, but it is still very special stories that anybody can get something out of Winnie the Pooh, It's Winnie the Pooh's for everyone. That's why it's a classic.
Let's talk about the Greek classics more particular for a moment. Like I was saying earlier, our kids have gone through some of this with their curriculum. But, one of the problems that we have as homeschool parents is the pressure of the world and society to force younger people to deal with subjects that they're not mature enough to process and handle well. And we just see like an onslaught against their senses. And so we try as parents to protect them. Some might call that a bubble. I don't care what they call it personally. But we try to protect their innocence and help them to mature in a more stable fashion. And to that end, there's some difficult parts of the Greek classics that my kids have to go through because of their curriculum. What would you say to parents like us that we're like, oh my heavens, this is some rough stuff. There's sexual scandal, there's bloodlust. I mean, there's paganism. There's just a lot of stuff in these Greek classics, and yet they're considered the classics that are the foundation of literature. So, what do you say to parents like me?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm thinking back to when I was in Christian school. I grew up Protestant, and I went to Christian school all the way through college, not Catholic school, but Protestant Christian schools. And in my second grade class, we started reading the KJV, the King James Version. And that's what I was raised on, is King James Version. And we read the Bible all the time. And the Bible has some difficult things in it. The Bible does. We're not talking about the Greek,
yes,
but we're talking about the Bible. And that has some tough stuff. And we read the actual Bible, not a children's story Bible. We read the real Bible. And I believe that when we got to passages like, what you're talking about, when there were some difficult, bloody passages, our teachers were just very graceful in leading us past them. Probably, I think that they probably would have taken us through a very surface reading of them. And most of the time we didn't understand what we were probably reading in some of those passages. And so I connect that to the Greek literature, or even any of the classics that have some difficult material, because they're not, the Greek classics are not the only ones. I think that's where, parental and teacher guidance really becomes important. Especially when the kids are old enough to catch things. In second grade, we're not going to catch some of the worst parts of, the bloodiest parts of the Bible, or some of the most troubling parts in the Old Testament. But I think that's where we really need to hold our children's hand, because there is a lot of very troubling things that they're not fully mature about. And then some of it they might just gloss over, even in their teen years, because they're just not there yet where they can process what they're reading. But we need to maybe be aware of what they're reading. And I can't say this enough about even contemporary literature, because you cannot trust today's publishers for children. And so whether it's Greek mythology or contemporary YA, or even contemporary middle grade or anything, we need to be aware of what our children are watching and listening to and reading all the time. And when they get to those parts, we need to lead them through it in an age-appropriate way, and maybe not go in deep to some of these difficult parts, but lead them through the surface as best we can. And, real life, or well, I don't know, mythology may not be so real life, but there's some bloody parts of the Odyssey, and I can remember. I'm just saying we need parental guidance. And
Yeah,
teacher
even
guidance.
the sexual elements can be very difficult and troubling, and it's usually for the teenagers that you have to pay the most attention to.
Yeah,
and I'm glad
I don't
you
know,
brought
there's
up.
no easy answer.
I'm
There's
glad
no
you brought
easy
up the
answer to
Bible
that.
too. There are several passages in sacred scripture that can be very scandalous to the young mind.
Yes, yes.
So I guess what you're saying is parents can't be hands off. There's no set it and forget
No.
it. You have
you really
to be totally
can't.
involved.
You really can't be. Maybe with Winnie the Pooh you can be, but we cannot. These are ideas, and ideas are dangerous. They're dangerous. We're seeing this in our culture right now. Just in the news, we're seeing how ideas are dangerous with all the wokeness and people getting canceled and all that. This is not a time to be hands off of our children. And, we know maybe when there's a TV show or something that's safe, like I could let my kids watch Scooby-Doo and I'll be fine because I grew up on Scooby-Doo. But if we don't know what's in that, if we don't know what's in the book, we need to be hands-on and paying attention and helping our kids to understand and process it in a way that's relatable to them and appropriate for that child.
Absolutely. Cherry Blomquist is our guest. Her book is Before Austin Comes Aesop, the children's great books and how to experience them. Before Austin Comes Aesop, why the title Before Austin Comes Aesop? Is there something particular about Austin and Aesop's Fables? I actually have never read, and I feel ashamed for saying so, neither Austin or Aesop. So what would you recommend in a practical sense, and pick up this and pick up this? Like, do you want to say read Aesop's Fables and then read Jane Austen?
Oh, well, I use Austin and Aesop as symbolic of adult literature and children's literature. A lot of programs I've noticed over the years, and this is actually what inspired the title, a lot of literature programs, homeschool and otherwise, tend to push teens, and I think specifically of teens, into adult classics before they are really ready for them. Before they really explore the treasures of children's literature. I mean, a lot of teens are reading, high-level classics before ever reading, Winnie the Pooh, or even some teen classics that like Treasure Island. It was a wonderful story. A lot of students get to the adult classics without ever reading Treasure Island, which is one of the cornerstones of Western children's literature. So my plea in the title is let your children explore children's literature fully and deeply before pushing them into adult literature. Because the adult literature will always be there. It's not going to go anywhere. Your children have, 50, 60, 70 years to be an adult, but they don't have very long to be a child or a teenager. Those years are fleeting. And if they don't read the wonderful children's literature available to them as children, they may not ever, unless they maybe have children and read to that child. And to me, that's kind of a minor tragedy because children's literature, as I said earlier, is just as important and just as beautiful and just as classic and part of Western civilization as any adult literature is. So,
Cherry, we're just about out of time. If you had to pick one classic book, what would it be? Only one. What would you choose?
you mean like my favorite or what I think is the most important?
It's the lady's choice. If you're only allowed one book ever of a classic, what would it be?
Well, I'll go with my favorite because I don't know if I can pull out the most important. I mean, the Bible is the most important, I guess, but my favorite is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith.
All right. Praise be God. There you go. Cherry Blomquist, the book is Before Austin Comes Aesop, the children's great books and how to experience them, published by Ignatius Press. Thank you for your time today. God love you and God bless you.
Thank you.
Have a great day. That is going to do it for hour number 1 of Catholic Drive Time. Praise be to God. We have survived it, even without Emily here. Praying for her, of course. But we're going to have a second hour. If you're able to join us, we'd love to have you. We have a guest in studio to fill in for the game show. Prizes are involved in Today's the Day. We pull the winners. If you want to watch that, hang out with us. Go on over to grnonline.com/CDT. You can watch and comment live at grnonline.com/CDT. God love you and God bless you.
Thank you for joining us on Your Catholic Drive Time, where it is our pleasure to keep you informed and inspired.
Join us Monday through Friday at the same time, right here on your favorite Catholic radio station.
Don't forget to connect with us. Just go to facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Again, that's facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Be sure to share more than just us today. Share Jesus with everyone you meet.
Bye now, and God love you.
A friend of mine said that his church